Switches are rated in accordance with Underwriters Laboratory Standard 943, commonly referred to as UL 943 within the National Electrical Code. This standard establishes the requirements for ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs. While it might seem like GFCIs are a separate topic, many switches, particularly those used in residential and commercial settings, incorporate GFCI protection. Therefore, understanding UL 943 is crucial for comprehending switch ratings and ensuring electrical safety. The main purpose of UL 943 is to prevent electrical shock hazards. Ground faults occur when there is an unintended path for current to flow from a live conductor to ground. This can happen if insulation fails, a wire comes loose, or equipment is damaged. If a person comes into contact with a grounded object that is also in contact with a live conductor, they can receive a potentially lethal electric shock. GFCIs are designed to detect these ground faults and quickly interrupt the circuit, preventing serious injury or death. UL 943 specifies the performance requirements for GFCIs, including their trip threshold, trip time, and ability to withstand various environmental conditions. The trip threshold is the amount of current leakage that will cause the GFCI to trip. For personnel protection, GFCIs typically have a trip threshold of 5 mA. This means that if the GFCI detects a leakage current of 5 mA or more, it will trip and shut off the power to the circuit. The trip time is the amount of time it takes for the GFCI to trip after a ground fault is detected. UL 943 requires GFCIs to trip within a very short time, typically within 25 milliseconds. This fast trip time is essential to minimize the duration of the electric shock and reduce the severity of the injury. In addition to the trip threshold and trip time, UL 943 also specifies other performance requirements for GFCIs, such as their ability to withstand overvoltages, surges, and temperature variations. These requirements ensure that the GFCI will function reliably under a variety of operating conditions. Now, let's consider how UL 943 relates to switch ratings. Switches that incorporate GFCI protection are subject to the requirements of UL 943. This means that they must meet the performance criteria for trip threshold, trip time, and environmental withstand capability. The switch rating will typically indicate whether it is a GFCI protected switch and will also specify the voltage and current ratings of the switch. For example, a switch might be rated at 120 volts and 15 amps with GFCI protection. This means that the switch is designed to operate at 120 volts and can handle a maximum current of 15 amps, and it also incorporates a GFCI that meets the requirements of UL 943. It is important to note that not all switches are GFCI protected. Standard switches without GFCI protection are not subject to the requirements of UL 943. However, even standard switches must meet other UL standards for safety and performance. These standards cover aspects such as the switch's ability to withstand voltage surges, its resistance to heat and fire, and its mechanical durability. When selecting a switch, it is important to consider the application and the electrical requirements of the circuit. The switch must be rated for the voltage and current of the circuit, and it must be suitable for the environment in which it will be installed. For example, switches used in damp or wet locations must be rated for wet locations and must be protected from moisture. In addition to UL standards, switches must also comply with the requirements of the National Electrical Code, or NEC. The NEC provides detailed requirements for the installation and use of electrical equipment, including switches. The NEC specifies the types of switches that are permitted in different locations, the wiring methods that must be used, and the grounding requirements that must be met. Understanding both UL standards and the NEC is essential for ensuring the safe and reliable operation of electrical systems. When installing switches, it is important to follow all applicable codes and standards. This includes using the correct wiring methods, properly grounding the switch, and ensuring that the switch is rated for the voltage and current of the circuit. It is also important to test the switch after it is installed to ensure that it is functioning properly. If a GFCI protected switch is installed, it is important to test the GFCI function regularly to ensure that it is working correctly. This can be done by pressing the test button on the GFCI. If the GFCI does not trip when the test button is pressed, it should be replaced immediately. In summary, switches are rated in accordance with UL 943 when they incorporate GFCI protection. UL 943 specifies the performance requirements for GFCIs, including their trip threshold, trip time, and ability to withstand various environmental conditions. Understanding UL 943 is essential for comprehending switch ratings and ensuring electrical safety. When selecting and installing switches, it is important to consider both UL standards and the NEC. By following all applicable codes and standards, it is possible to ensure the safe and reliable operation of electrical systems. This includes understanding the specific requirements outlined in UL 943 regarding ground fault circuit interrupters and their integration into switch designs. Remember that UL 943 isn't just about the trip threshold or trip time, it encompasses a holistic approach to safety covering construction, testing, and performance under various conditions. Therefore, electrical professionals need to be well versed in UL 943 to select, install, and maintain switches effectively, ensuring the safety of electrical systems and preventing potential hazards. Furthermore, the NEC references UL 943 as the benchmark for GFCI performance, solidifying its importance in electrical installations.